Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hello everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. I am so excited because joining me today is Laura Mustard. Hey Laura.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. How's it going for you?
Yeah, it's going really well.
Fantastic. I'm so excited you're joining me because today we're going to be talking about intimidation versus community in the music industry. And I'm very excited for this. But before we get into that, can you share with all the listeners a little about yourself and your journey with music so far?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Laura Mustard. I'm based out of Nashville, Tennessee now, but grew up in Connecticut. I'm a singer, songwriter, and independent artist. Put out 2 EPs so far, and I have a new album coming out this summer, which is super exciting. So yeah, I'm just living in Nashville and putting out my own music. I guess I do more folk pop in terms of genre, but I like writing any kind. So yeah, that's me in the nutshell, I guess.
Perfect. Awesome. I'm so excited because Typewriter is out by the time this episode is out. So, how did it feel creating this project?
Man, yeah, it was super exciting. I mean, I'd written a song called Typewriter, and then years ago I wrote a song called Unfriended about like getting broken up with on the internet with someone kind of and watching you move on social media. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to have those two songs next to each other. And then with the pandemic, I was like, well, let me just do a whole album about technology, and that's kind of what it turned into. So it's really exciting to see it kind of make its way out into the world this summer.
That's so exciting. And I love how you brought up how those two songs seem to fit so well together. Isn't it so cool when those unexpected things happen?
Right? Yeah. I mean, because I was even thinking of like a long-term project. I just like typewriters and use them a lot. It's like, oh, it'd be cool to write a song about it. And then it kind of morphed into this whole project, which is exciting to kind of just follow
Yeah,
it and see where it goes.
for sure. Yeah. So you picked an awesome quote by Daniel Radcliffe, aka our Harry Potter. So would you like to read that?
Yes. Can I ask first what house you're in?
I am a Hufflepuff.
Me
Hufflepuff.
too.
Yay!
Hufflepuff. Okay. Into the serious quote now, but yes. Excellent. But yeah, no, so the Daniel Radcliffe quote is I think the most creative people veer between ambition and anxiety, self doubt and confidence. I definitely can relate to that. We all go through that. Am I doing the right thing? Is this what I'm meant to be doing? We all kind of have those. Um, I think kind of that back and forth. So that I like that quote a lot because I can definitely resonate with that.
Yeah, for sure. This is so true. I completely agree with this. I think I love hearing something like this from somebody who is so famous and well known because I feel like sometimes when we are just starting out, we can think that this battle that we experience between self doubt and confidence is something that we only face. But this isn't the only quote by a celebrity expressing the fact that basically everybody experiences this no matter what level of success you're at. And so I think that's kind of reassuring to realize that we're not alone in this.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like especially kind of in the age of social media, everyone's projecting this really polished, look at my awesome thing, and no, not as many people are talking about that kind of insecurity that's kind of under the surface. So for me, just having that reminder of even Harry Potter gets concerned
For
sometimes
sure. Oh,
makes me
yeah.
feel better about myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And bringing up the social media side of things, I think it's so difficult because as songwriters and artists, we have to be on there. I mean, there are some who aren't on there, but I feel like if you want to connect with your audience and share your music, being on social media is kind of important. And as the industry is moving more digital, it's even more important than ever to be on there. But it definitely comes with strategies. I think one of the hardest things is this idea of intimidation that I want to dive into. So, when you started in the music industry, what were your personal experiences with dealing with feeling intimidated?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting too, kind of jumping into a town like Nashville where so many people want to be doing what you're doing. And so there's definitely a lot of intimidation there too, versus kind of when I was in Massachusetts, we more had kind of open mic nights, and there was still like a really cool music scene there, but there weren't as many like people who kind of wanted to make it as songwriters in terms of professional. I don't know. It's just a different market you're jumping into, and there's more of a professionalism. More people are trying to like make it full time here, I guess, than Western Massachusetts as an artist. Not that that's not happening up there, but yeah. So I think kind of jumping into just such a music centric town definitely amps up that intimidation factor a little bit. And like I'm a Nashville artist, and everybody's kind of playing the same game you are, which can be very motivating if you kind of look at it that way. But it can also be, I think, scary.
No, absolutely. And I love how you had the courage to just dive into Nashville. I'm in Pittsburgh, so I'm not in the city, but I definitely feel the intimidation from afar. I mean, even if you're in the music industry, no matter where you live, you're going to feel it. But I love how you kind of brought up the perspective and how you can view this as a positive way and adds motivation. So I think it's all about mindset and finding ways of being confident and believing in yourself and seeing opportunities where you come in contact with people who may be more established or doing the same thing you're doing. You can kind of look at that and use that as motivation to keep going down your journey. So I think that's really important.
Is that yeah, like I think kind of like knowing your quote unquote brand or your kind of audience too, and making sure you're not comparing yourself too harshly too about people that were kind of looking for different things. Like 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 I have a friend who's on TikTok who is kind of blowing up and she's killing it, but she's more of kind of a straight country artist and has kind of like rhinestone boots on Broadway and is just that's her vibe and she's leaning into it and awesome at it and crushing it. Where I'm more of a singer songwriter kind of pop folk thing, and I'm running around with typewriters and banjos in the woods and stuff, which is just kind of a different thing too. So it's just important not to compare yourself too harshly to people who are just leaning into maybe a different demographic than you, and just making sure that you're being fair to yourself in terms of what you're looking for versus what other people are chasing too, because it's so hard on social media with all the numbers and streams and all that.
Absolutely, 100%. I think comparing yourself to somebody else is the worst possible thing you can do because I think like the grass is always greener for everybody other places, and I think like for us, we can look at somebody and think, oh, I wish I had that. But somebody else could be looking at us and say, oh, I wish I had that. And so I think it's really important just to focus on yourself. And the numbers thing, too, is like even when I was growing up in like high school, that's when I got Instagram and I was in high school. I wasn't a songwriter or artist at the time, but obviously when you're in high school, you have the whole popularity thing. And I honestly like didn't like going on Instagram or posting on Instagram just because like I didn't get as many likes as other people or comments and it was like damaging. And it's so unbelievable and like kind of sad that a lot of self-esteem and belief of somebody's self-worth comes from how many likes they got on a picture or how many streams their song has on Spotify, because when you look at the Spotify thing, I feel like it's just chance and luck because you basically have to get on an editorial playlist as an indie artist to get a lot of exposure. And if you're mainstream, obviously you have different drives of fans and streams and all of that. But for us, like it's really luck. And so it's so difficult to see how people compare streams and numbers to mean worthiness or like who's superior. And that's just like really hard to deal with sometimes.
Yeah, and, like, I feel like kind of I mean, like, and social media is kind of this double-edged sword where it really helps you get your music and your art out there to a much bigger audience by yourself than you could maybe 20 years ago without a label, but the other side is everyone's now posting about their numbers and their streams and stuff, so there is more of this comparison, but yeah, with I think so I mean, like, and like I feel like kind of zooming out and looking at that in terms of followers or streams. Like I have I think 800 followers on Instagram, which isn't a huge number for an artist, but it's still like if you put 800 people in a room, that's still a lot of people that were like watching me and supporting me. So I feel like trying to look at that more as a relative thing and kind of being kind of I guess just grateful for what you do have so far and what you are building, even if it's slow and steady, and kind of looking at those numbers in a different context can be helpful too to kind of take the pressure off of it a little bit.
For sure. Absolutely. So, kind of tying the intimidation factor of the industry into social media, you said that you were a little intimidated when you were in Nashville, being one other artist in this big city of others. But, like, in terms of the social media, do you have any, like, specific experiences you've had on there where you felt intimidated and kind of had to step away?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like I've spent too much time trying to figure out the TikTok algorithm, and I can't quite I can't quite crack it, and it is what it is. I mean, like, and I mean, like, I guess I'm trying to have a balance between like a build it and they will come versus trying to play with some of the trends or trying to follow kind of the rules of making shorter videos or whatever. But I feel like I got to a point where I was just I think putting too much effort into like reading articles about what hashtags to use and what's the optimal video length to put on and doing that, still not really getting, the right results. So I don't know. I think just trying to have a balance of putting out stuff and like how can I be creative and fun and still show myself as an artist in a way that I'm proud of, like, versus just jumping on a bunch of trends and trying to be an influencer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm still not on TikTok, and I think I'm really hesitant to get on for that reason because I just saw a tweet by an artist the other day where they were basically saying something along the lines of, as a songwriter, they want to write what's real and true for them, not do what an algorithm wants. And that just really hit me hard. It's like almost like it's taken away from creativity a little bit.
Yeah, and like I think kind of with any of this kind of social media stuff, it's more in how you use it. And TikTok is like a really cool place for creativity, and it is cool to see kind of all these funny songs people are making, or just even kind of social movements and Gen Z. I'm like right behind you, and so that's cool, and that is inspiring to see. That I feel like you can get down a rabbit hole, or you can get kind of obsessed with chasing the trends, or whatever. So it's doing it, but doing it in moderation. But not everyone's on TikTok either. I don't know if you have to be, but it just
Yeah.
seems to be the way the industry is leaning. So I feel like I'm
Yeah.
trying to play along for now, but
Yeah. No, I completely agree with all of that. But I feel like at the end of the day, like, we can be intimidated from many different angles, but when we are able to find ourselves and immerse ourselves into the music community, we can find that it can be a great place. So, what have your experiences been with pushing through feelings of intimidation or fear and actually feeling welcomed in the industry?
yeah, I mean, it is a super positive thing. I mean, like, and even social media, I feel like kind of years ago, or even like when I first moved to Nashville, they would say, like, always have a business card, and that's kind of how you network. But now everyone's just like, what's your Instagram? Let me find you on there, and I'll send you a DM, and we can write. Like, no one really trades business cards as much anymore. So that's really cool with social media, that it truly can be this networking tool if you use it right. But yeah, I mean, I feel like even just with like NSAI, I met which is like the Nashville Writers Association. I've just met like a lot of great co-writers there, and like I do love how Nashville is a town that really kind of celebrates the songwriter and does really push for this kind of community feeling, and that's really what drew me to Nashville. And I'm like I didn't really feel that same electricity, I guess, for songwriting other places. So I feel like that spirit is still here, and kind of harnessing that versus all the noise of streams or whatever. I think definitely
Yeah.
helps too.
For sure. Yeah, I think that, like, when you know where to look, you'll find the best people. And this industry can be very competitive, and I've tried to not focus on that. Like, anytime I interact with somebody who seems to have their mind set on the wrong things, I try to distance myself because another thing with this whole, like, intimidation versus community thing is, like, it can definitely start to affect your mental health and your emotions and all of that. And I've definitely found myself in situations that weren't healthy. I found myself in conversations where I felt down on myself and thought I wasn't worth it or that I didn't belong in the industry and I wasn't good enough, and having all these imposter syndrome kind of thoughts and feelings. And so I think it's always so important, especially in an industry like the music industry, to surround yourself with positivity always.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's important. And there definitely are people who will kind of work with you when it's convenient, and then kind of not when it's no longer convenient for them. Versus, I like that idea of kind of just bringing up people around you and supporting your kind of community of songwriters and things like that. So just kind of being wary of who you're working with or what people's intentions are. But and like I feel like with social media too, like I kind of know about life people are kind of posting their highlight reels, but I'm just kind of starting to get now that people do that with music as well. And like for this kind of new typewriter project, I've been sending a lot of emails, and so I started kind of just doing like a little tally of how many emails I've sent, just because it feels like I'm doing so many. I like to watch the progress, and so I've sent so far like 300 emails maybe since February for like promo and playlists and all the things. And out of those 300, I've gotten maybe 10 hits back. And I posted a lot about those kind of hits and those positive kind of bits of press I've gotten, but I didn't post all the 100, all the 290 rejections or just no responses that you kind of get from that
Yeah.
too. And you kind of multiply that across what everyone's doing on social media. It's like how many rejections did they get before they're posting about this win that they have, and kind of just keeping that in perspective too with that intimidation that, yeah, we'll probably have a lot more rejection than we do have wins, but you're holding all of your rejections against everyone's kind of a handful of wins too. So just keeping that in mind, I think really helps. Just we're all kind of doing the best we can.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy you brought up the whole rejections thing and not getting answered because that's definitely something we all have to deal with, and that definitely contributes to feeling like we belong. And I definitely deal with the same thing. Like, I send emails and some people answer, but not everybody. And for a while, that really bothered me. But then I started to kind of realize from the other side of things, like what it's like. Because, for example, like with the podcast, I have I've been doing 6 episodes a month, and when you have something like that where there's limited places, once things start picking up, you kind of start have to being selective, which I've started how to do recently, and I do not like it. I don't like it at all because I don't like to say no to anybody, but at the same time, like I do this 100% solo, so I can't put more on my plate right now, and so I have to like start picking and choosing, and so being able to see from that point of view, I'm starting to be more like empathetic and understanding toward major publications and radio stations who only have so much time or so many spots on a radio show or posts a week or interviews or whatever, because you have to start being selective. And so I think what I've tried to remind myself is that music is subjective, and just because you or your music might not fit somewhere or you might not be selected, it's not that it's bad. It just might be that the person who's running the platform might have different preferences, but you'll be accepted somewhere else. And so I think that's just a reality we all face.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, art is so subjective, and like I sent one of my songs in for like it was like a blog that kind of focused on like the stories behind the song, and so I was excited to kind of dive into it. And he was like, "Sorry, I don't feel like the writing's strong enough." All right, man, that's cool. Like I appreciate your response, but like I'm still really proud of that song. I still
Right.
like the word, like I still like the wordplay in it, and I still like the message in it, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. And that was one dude's opinion, and that's okay. And I'm sure he has a million emails he's getting every day too, which is
Yeah.
fine. But so I feel like just like the more swings you take, it's like, all right, well now let me pitch it to 5 other blogs and see what happens there versus, having one person's opinion and kind of be the make or break thing for you. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
important too. Just taking more swings to
For sure.
have
Yeah.
have it, help in your favor.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love how you brought up that you were so proud of the song, even though somebody may not have liked it so much. And I think that's just so important. And I'm so glad you said that because at the end of the day, we do this, we write songs because we love to do it, and these songs mean something to us. And I've definitely gotten rejections and comments that weren't perfect and weren't great, but that didn't change my opinion on the song. And I think that's really important to keep in mind that we love our art, and a comment or a rejection isn't going to change that.
Yeah, exactly. Or even kind of like negative comments online, like, or even some of them I feel like are so like mean, they're like funny kind of, and I just kind of like, just trying to have like a sense of humor about it too. It's like, okay, that's like a really creative way of saying you don't like my song. I appreciate it, and just kind of learning to laugh at it, just because it's
Right.
gonna happen so much as part of putting your art out there. And that's just part of the game.
Yeah. And it's like, don't you have anything else to do with your time other than crafting a reply that's weird? Like, don't you have anything else you could be doing right now?
To be doing today, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like a lot of times those super negative ones are ones that just seem kind of hurtful or like aren't even about the music. It
Yeah.
usually says more about that person than it does about you. That if they're
Yeah.
going out of their way to be that mean online, you know. So
Yeah.
it's
It's
keeping that
ridiculous. Yeah.
taking it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, exactly. So now I want to talk about Typewriter, your new album. So can you just give a very brief track by track, go through the track list and share what each song is called and a little bit of what it's about and what inspired it?
Sure. Yeah. So typewriter, I actually collect typewriters. I have at least six right now, and I may have ordered one on eBay last week, but that's fine. But anyway, I like typewriters a lot, and I use them a lot. And so I just thought that would be a really cool title, and even and we actually ended up like miking a typewriter in the studio, so there is like a real typewriter sound in it. So that was just a really fun song to kind of create. It's more just about kind of doing things more slow and deliberate, and just kind of celebrating the typewriter and the creativity and kind of the tactile feeling of writing with a typewriter. Show and Tells is the second track, and it's about actually like the first time I kind of posted about some medical issues I have online about 2 years ago. And I was promoting my last project. I actually had a urinary blockage and had to have like three operations in a month, which is fine now. But like it just felt like disingenuous not to talk about that when I was promoting these singles too. So I just started posting about it, and I got a really positive response online. And so kind of celebrating that community that can be cultivated online, and also kind of some self acceptance and body positivity. And it's cool because it is singing about vulnerability, but it's such like an upbeat song that you can dance to. It's like my current single right now, so that's super fun. Track three is "Love in the Time of," which is my little pandemic song. That because it's kind of a play on love in the time of cholera, but love in the time of corona. That kind of just talks about the importance of technology during that kind of time when we were just all at home. Unfriended is track four, and that's was my single back in April, I think. And it's about just kind of watching somebody move on without you on social media after you've broken up, which I feel like is now more of a universal experience. But and it is very kind of tongue in cheek and funny. So I was like that one. Track five is called Sunflowers, and it's about somebody that like I wrote with over Zoom, but then he started crossing lines, and I got like 25 emails in a week, and like he sent flowers to my office, and it just felt very scary and kind of like the dark side of the internet that can happen, almost like online stalking. So it's funny because it has like a very cheery title, but it's a more intense song. Uh, Track six is called Hide and Seek, and that is actually kind of about using social media and kind of how I spent so many years kind of hiding my medical stuff, and really it was kind of like a part about me that does have a lot of strength and kind of interest to it. And so kind of talking about how that kind of shame around it maybe led to some dependency on social media, and I kind of actually had this image of being kind of playing hide and seek with like a 6-year-old version of myself because I was so kind of carefree as a kid and didn't really care about the medical stuff. It wasn't until I got older and kind of became more self-conscious. So kind of playing with self-esteem and social media and metaphor. I like that song a lot. It's one of my favorites. Track seven is called Left to My Devices, and it's hard to tell if I'm talking about a relationship or my phone. So it's kind of a fun song. And then track number eight, which is the last one, is called The Type, which is my first single that came out in March. And it's kind of about like comparing who you are on social media to who you are in real life, because we all kind of project a little bit. So kind of just about how we're doing the best we can with what we have. And so that's more of a positivity jam that makes me feel better about social media. So yeah, it's a pretty cool project that kind of dances around different elements of social media throughout all the tracks.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's fantastic. And I really like how you explore some deeper and a little bit of darker topics in some songs that a lot of people aren't, one, open to talking about, or two, have the strength to talk about. And I think it's really awesome how you are able to do that in this project. What was it like for you to open up about some very personal and specific topics like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a degree that's part of how I just process stuff. And even like the sunflower song kind of happened in the fall maybe, but it took me like a few months to even process it enough to kind of write it, and I kind of finished it right before we went into the studio. And even like the violin player was there that day, and I was like, "Well, I want you to channel all of your male rage into this violin." So and she did a really good job with it, so that was good. But yeah, so I think it was almost kind of cathartic to kind of write about it. And in terms of kind of talking about like the medical stuff in relation to posting online, I didn't really talk to anyone about it till like maybe after college, just because I was teased a lot as a kid about it, and just kind of learned if you talk about this, you might not have friends. So I just kind of compartmentalized it, and I talked about it at home with my family, but I didn't really express it to really people outside of that. And so it was at first very scary to kind of post about it for the first time, but once it was just a very positive thing. I'm like, you're not 12 anymore. People don't really care. Like it was a very positive response. And so I think that too was almost like an antidote to all that shame as a kid. And it was just a very positive experience to finally write about it and be more open about it. And then even through promoting show and tell, kind of having people reach out, and other people have catheters and allergies and a lot of the same things I deal with. But I think a lot of people too can just relate to kind of feeling like they have to hide certain parts of themselves, and hopefully finding acceptance around it. So yeah, that's been a very positive experience too, diving into it. Even though those topics look scary from the outside, if you walk through them, it for me just feels better to process it and put it out into the world.
That's so inspiring. It's so inspiring not only from your perspective, seeing the positivity after you open up, but also seeing how like the community aspect really shine through. I think that's the most beautiful thing about music is it can bring people together. And as songwriters, we're able to talk about our own experiences and share them with others for others to relate to and find comfort. And I think that this project, because of how authentic and honest it is definitely going to reach people. um, I think that's amazing. So, this album is a concept album, which I think is awesome. Not many albums, well, there are many albums like this, but not every album is a concept album like this. So, what was it like for you to write an album that was so closely linked to this concept of social media and technology?
Yeah, it was interesting because I kind of had a few songs, but then I was doing a lot of co-writing, especially in 2020 over Zoom, and people would be like, "What do you want to write about?" I was like, "Let's write about technology or social media. Like, I'm working on a project," and everyone's like, "Cool." Like, I'm really frustrated about that too. So it was really interesting that like a lot of times it was more of a negative spin, but it was cool kind of finding those positive angles too. But it was just interesting taking that idea to co-writers, and everybody was very eager to write about that topic, which was really kind of cathartic, I think, thing. And there were kind of a handful of songs that I did write with others too that didn't quite make the project, but even, they were just fun to write and create and put out there. So I think that was just interesting, bringing that idea to so many people and seeing people get really excited about it and wanting to kind of express their feelings around it too. That was really positive. But I think it was cool too, just trying to find all the different angles of let me pull back from the technology and just use a typewriter. And actually, for like a few months in 2021, I went back to a flip phone and tried just having that for a few months, but it was too hard not to have one just with the way our society's set up. But that was interesting thing too, kind of just trying different approaches with technology. What if I just throw it all out? But kind of again, I think the whole moral of the whole thing is just to try to have a balance with it and think of these things as more tools to help you without letting them consume you, because they
Yeah.
definitely can.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's so cool how when you brought this concept to collaborators, they were like completely on board. I think that's a great hint at the fact that this project is so universal. And that's definitely a mark of great songwriting and a great album when you write about something. Of course, these songs are rooted in your personal experiences, but the overarching topic is very universal, and I think that's absolutely amazing. What is the number one concept or message you would like your listeners to take away from this?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I guess I mean, I guess kind of like the overall again kind of conclusion I came to, especially after like let me try a flip phone or let me like try not having any of this was like, well, I still need it to get by in the world, and even as a musician, you still kind of need social media to promote yourself now. But can you do it in a way that doesn't take over your life? And like, can you kind of find that balance? And like, there's ways to play in it and have creativity and have fun, or even with some of the medical stuff, kind of posting about that on TikTok. Like Gen Z is just killing it, and they're like dancing with IV poles and like celebrating their bodies, and like it's so different from like my experience with with my medical stuff when I was in high school, and seeing these kind of younger kids just like owning it is really positive, I think, for me too. So I mean, there's a lot of great stuff about technology too. It's just all on how you use it, and just being very intentional about how you're using this technology to help you versus consume you, I guess. Which I guess is the same thing with our overall topic of can you on these other artists and make them your community versus intimidation or competition. Like it's all how you use it, but easier said than done. But
Yeah, for sure. No, but I think it's something we all have to remember. It's the way you approach it. And if you approach technology and social media in a positive way and in the right way, then you can connect with others and find a sense of community instead of having that negativity and intimidation following you around. But yeah, I think you have a very inspiring project. And I have one more question for you. For any songwriters listening who are dealing with this struggle of intimidation versus community in the industry, what advice would you give them?
yeah, I mean, I think for one, sometimes just taking a break from social media or not going on TikTok for the day or whatever, it can be helpful too, and just going to sit down at the piano or sit down at the guitar or whatever, just writing and kind of remembering why you're doing it in the first place. Because I feel like with all the noise online, it is easy to kind of get distracted or even just spend days kind of making content versus actually performing and playing. And there are ways to kind of hit two birds with one stone too, but I just feel like I've had that struggle of like getting so sucked into the algorithm and forgetting about the craft. So just kind of trying to stay grounded in why you're creating or why you love creating or why you love singing or why you love writing songs. That always keeps me grounded and makes everything else kind of worth it. So
Fantastic. Wow, Laura, thank you so, so much. Can you share with everyone where they can find you on social media and listen to your music?
yeah, sure. So my name's Laura Mustard. You can find me on Spotify or Apple or wherever you stream. My new project's called Typewriter, so it'll be on there, and there's a handful of singles. I think on Instagram, I'm Laura Mustard. On Facebook and TikTok, I'm Laura Mustard Music because there are already Laura Mustards there. And on Twitter, I'm Mustard Laura. So, but if you search Laura Mustard and you see my picture or you see someone posting about music named Laura Mustard, that's me. So you can find me on all those places. And yeah, feel free to follow along because that really does help artists kind of get more opportunities and more features and stuff. Like any place you pitch to now asks how many followers you have, which is a little frustrating, but that's part of the game. So if you want to help me out and follow along and help me have more opportunities, that's really handy because we're all just doing the best we can, support each
Yeah,
other.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Laura, it was lovely having you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I had a great time talking with you.
Of course, of course. Listeners, thank you for listening to this episode with Laura Mustard. And of course, until next time,
Stay
stay
right
right
on
on track.
track.